Chapter 1. Here is the first chapter of the Orange Flash in Middle-earth. The final battle between him and Madara created an energy shockwave so strong it opened a dimensional portal and sent Naruto to Middle-earth. With the help of Kurama and an old wizard, Naruto makes a name for himself in Middle-earth as the Orange Flash. The Fourth Shinobi War raged on as Madara's army fought against the allied shinobi forces. Madara and Kabuto raised an army using dead ninja and forced the allied forces to face against people they once called friends and family. The war continued. Madara was close to his goal of curing the world until Naruto Uzumaki stopped him. In a final battle to be forever remembered, Naruto and the reanimated Hokages of the past fought against Madara and Obito and eventually the ten-tailed beast. Eventually, the fight came down to Naruto against Madara, and neither one was going to give up. "Just give up, child. Can't you see it? I will save this world," Madara told Naruto as he was holding his side in some pain from the last Rasengan. "As so will I, but this world doesn't need your kind of help," Naruto said as Madara prepared to launch one final attack, and Naruto did too. Naruto's father, Minato, was able to separate his half of Kurama's from himself and give it to Naruto. Naruto, in his fully powered nine-tails state, readied the strongest Rasen Shuriken Biju bomb to clash with Madara's Susanoo. When the attacks clashed, it caused an energy shockwave so strong that everyone in the elemental nations and beyond could feel it. Madara's Susanoo couldn't stand against the power, and he was killed by the sheer force of the blast and disintegrated. Naruto smiled as his handiwork, but then felt something odd. He then saw that the energy shockwave created a small portal and he was getting sucked in. Naruto was weak from the battle and couldn't get away quick enough and was sucked in. When the portal vanished and everyone saw what happened, they saw that Madara was defeated, but their great hero and the child of prophecy had vanished. But to where? The Orange Flash in Middle-earth. In the lands of Middle-earth, general peace had been established for several hundreds years after the defeat of the Dark Lord Sauron and the collapse of the Noldorin realm in Middle-earth. In the town of Rivendell, home to Lord Elrond, in a peaceful courtyard of the Eleven Home, an energy shockwave so large and powerful it spread across all of Middle-earth. Many of the great wizards and guardians of Middle-earth felt this foreign and powerful energy wash over Middle-earth and wondered what change had occurred. Even the remnants of Lord Sauron's army and the Dark Lord himself were curious about this new energy. The shockwave's origin in the courtyard then turned into a small portal. Lord Elrond and many of the elves gathered in the courtyard to watch in awe. The portal then stabilized, and they saw a young man with blonde hair stumble out of the portal before losing consciousness. The portal then immediately closed, and the elves checked on the young man. Lord Elrond looked at the boy and saw his many wounds, but also saw his headband and recognized it. "My Lord Elrond, what do we do with the boy?" one of the elves asked in Elvish. "Take him to the healing chambers," Lord Elrond told them as they brought Naruto into a room to heal him. The Elvish healers and Lord Elrond healed his wounds, but were amazed at the rate at which his body was healing. He would be awake within a day, and Elrond was impressed. He had never seen anyone from the shinobi realm before, but knew of their great abilities and wondered who this young man was. Soon after the energy shockwave dissipated, Gandalf the Grey felt the energy and raced to Rivendell to find out what happened. He arrived and spoke to Lord Elrond and learned of their new guest. Gandalf was interested in the young man because he knew there was greatness upon him. Line break Ixcaxex. Naruto began to stir and slowly opened his eyes to meet a white ceiling and sunlight. He figured he was in the hospital back at Konoha, but when he slowly sat up, he didn't recognize the room he was in. The room was decorated with lavish paintings and the architecture was exquisite. He also saw out the windows and didn't see Konoha, but instead a place even more beautiful. He slowly got out of bed and saw that he was wearing new clothes. He was wearing a greenish robe with long sleeves and saw some leather shoes. He went to a mirror to look at himself. His hair had grown out a little, now reaching over his ears. He saw the robe and thought it was okay, but it didn't have any orange. He then saw what remained of his clothes along with his headband and the necklace Tsunade gave him. He put the necklace back on as the door opened, and in walked a tall man with a grey beard, grey cloak, and carrying a long wooden staff. "Hello," the man said. "Hello?" Naruto said, as little confused on who the stranger was. "Good morning." "What do you mean? Do you mean to wish me a good morning, or do you mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not? Or perhaps you meant to say that you feel good on this particular morning, or are you simply stating that this is a morning to be good on?" the man said as Naruto looked at him weird. Naruto said, not knowing what to say as the man chuckled. "The first one, I think," Naruto said confused. "Well, in that case, good morning to you to Naruto Uzumaki," the man said as Naruto was concerned that he knew who he was. "How do you know my name?" Naruto asked, concerned. "It's quite all right, my lad. I mean you no harm. My name is Gandalf, Gandalf the Grey. Your name was on the back of your headband. I must say, we have never had someone from your world come to ours before," Gandalf said, which made Naruto more confused. "I just made up the name on the headband thing." "My world?" Naruto asked as another man entered the room but had long hair and pointy ears. "Naruto, may I introduce you to the person who has helped you, Lord Elrond of Rivendell," Gandalf said. "Welcome to Rivendell, Naruto Uzumaki," Elrond said as he showed Naruto the town of Rivendell. Naruto was in awe at the beauty of the town, the great architecture, the beautiful trees and nature of the area. Naruto didn't have the words to describe the beauty. "Rivendell? I don't suppose that's in the elemental nations, is it?" Naruto asked. "I'm afraid not, my young friend. You are not home. You came to Rivendell in a portal, one that drew my attention here," Gandalf told him. "I remember I was fighting Madara when my attack clashed with his. He was killed, but I got sucked into this portal, then I blacked out," Naruto said, remembering his fight. "How do I get home?" Naruto asked. "I'm afraid that is a question we cannot answer. You came to our world by your own means. We don't have the means to get you back. I'm sorry," Lord Elrond told him as they saw the sadness in Naruto's eyes. "Excuse me," Naruto said as he ran off. He ran until he found a spot near a waterfall and broke down with tears falling down his eyes. "Granny, Sakura, Kakashi, everyone, I'm stuck here," Naruto thought, saddened that he would never see his friends again. "Sorry, Kit," Kurama said, saddened to see Naruto crying like that. "Kurama, is there any way we can get home?" Naruto said, hopeful that he would have an answer. "Sorry, Kit, I may be an almighty and powerful Biju, but even I have limits," Kurama told Naruto, and Naruto was even more depressed. For whatever it's worth, we could have fallen into an even worse world than this. "You know where we are," Naruto said. "I've been around for a while, and way before I was sealed. I traveled for a little bit. I came to Middle-earth thousands of years ago, and it's a pretty good place. It's full of adventure and action. I'm sure you'll have fun here," Kurama said. "But what about getting home?" Naruto said. "Kit, the only way you got here was because of the combined chakra of ours and Madara's attack. To open a portal, we would have to create enough chakra to match that, which may not even be possible with just us. And even then, I'm not sure it would open back home," Kurama told Naruto as Naruto thought of home. "Look, I know this is a lot to take in, but think of this as a fresh start. If we can find a way to get you back home, then we'll take it. But for now, let's start anew." Naruto thought about what Kurama said, and it did sound exciting, and he could use a fresh start. "All right, but if we find a way home, we take it," Naruto said. "Biju's honor," Kurama joked as Naruto chuckled. "Besides, I think we're going to be needed here very soon." "All right, I better head back to that grey guy and Lord Elfond," Naruto said as Kurama just sighed at Naruto's forgetfulness. "I believe it's Gandalf and Lord Elrond, you idiot," Kurama said. "Shut up, furball," Naruto said as he got up and headed back to Gandalf and Elrond. He was walking through Rivendell and saw Gandalf and Elrond talking near one of the big buildings. He walked up to them and got their attention. "Excuse me," Naruto said as Gandalf and Elrond turned to see Naruto. Are you all right, Naruto?" Gandalf asked. "Yes, I just needed a moment to myself. Sorry about that," Naruto told them. "It's all right. We understand. This is a lot to take in," Elrond said. "Yeah, thank you again for helping me, Lord Elrond," Naruto said, "You're quite welcome. Come, we have much to discuss." Elrond told him as Naruto followed the two. Line break E66. Elrond and Gandalf told Naruto where he was and that Rivendell was one of many 11 homes in Middle-earth. The elves. That also threw Naruto for a loop. Middle-earth was populated with many different creatures that Naruto had never seen, and some he didn't know existed. Elves, dwarves, hobbits, and some horrible creatures such as goblins, trolls and orcs and the uruks. Over the next few years, he got accustomed to his new temporary place of residence. Elrond and Gandalf taught him the customs of Middle-earth and the differences between here and his home. Elrond also gave him access to the library in Rivendell. Naruto, with the help of some shadow clones, he was able to read and learn the history of Middle-earth. He learned about the different races and how one elf helped shape Middle-earth. During the Second Age of Middle-earth, one elf known as Celebrimbor, Prince of Noldor, was one of the most skilled smiths of all of Middle-earth. He forged the Rings of Power and helped to forge the One Ring of Power, which was used by the Dark Lord Sauron to take over Middle-earth. Eventually, an alliance of men and elves fought against the Dark Lord and Isildur. The Prince of Gondor was able to cut off the One Ring, and Sauron was destroyed. Since then, Middle-earth was in relative peace. Even though Middle-earth was at peace, there were still small remnants of orcs and uruks roaming around the land, not to mention the bandits and the vicious creatures. He needed to defend himself, and Elrond offered to teach him sword fighting and archery. Naruto was excited to learn, and the lessons were amazing. Elrond was a great teacher. Fighting with the standard elf sword was a lot different than using a regular nodachi or katana. Luckily, along with his headband, which he put back on, he still had some kunai and shuriken left over. He also practiced with an elf dagger and the bow, which he had the most fun with, and was a pretty good shot. Kurama was also able to help Naruto with his jutsu and strength training. He learned a few new elemental jutsus, and Kurama even taught him how to make seals. When Naruto's father separated Kurama's chakra and gave it to Naruto, he also unknowingly passed on some of his knowledge, including that of seals and the Hirashin. Kurama was able to help Naruto decipher his dad's training and work, but he started off simple, making storage seals, and over the course of a few weeks of intense trial and error he made even more. Fire seals that burst into flames, ice seals that freeze anything, and he was even able to get a prototype of his dad's Hirashin seal working. Granted, even though the seal worked, the teleporting was a whole different story. The first time he tried, he nearly crashed into a tree. But through some more training, he was able to get his own rough version of his dad's jutsu. One day, when Naruto was walking through the halls of Rivendell, admiring the paintings and looking at the shards of Narsil, he heard a whisper. The whisper was calling to him, and when he followed it, walked into a room with a sword in the center. He saw the sword was on a pedestal with a jet-black sheath with silver rings around it. The handle was black with a silver end, which narrowed into a ring, with a silver crossguard and elvish writing on it. He marveled at the beauty of the sword and heard it calling to him. He stepped closer and he reached out to touch it when he heard a voice. "An interesting sword, is it not?" Naruto turned to see Lord Elrond enter the room. "Lord Elrond, forgive me. I was just admiring the craftsmanship," Naruto said. "It's quite all right. I understand what brought you here. Gurthang has a habit of drawing in warriors," Elrond told him. "Gurthang?" Naruto asked. "Yes, this is a legendary blade. Gurthang, Iron of Death, reforged from the sword Anglakel, a sword originally forged by Eol, the dark elf of Nan Elmoth. This sword was used by its former owner, Turin, to slay the dragon Glaurung. It is said that this sword has a will of its own, and after the death of Turin, no man or elf has been deemed worthy to wield it," Elrond told him as Naruto was in awe over the sword. "No one?" Naruto asked. "None have been deemed worthy by the sword," Lord Elrond said, seeing the look of determination in Naruto's eyes. "Do you mind?" Naruto asked. "By all means," Elrond told him. Naruto moved closer to the sword and reached out to grab it. The whispers in his head grew louder. "Come closer, my new master. Evil is coming," the whispers told him. Naruto grabbed the hilt of the sword and lifted the sword. It felt natural and right to have Gurthang in his hand. He then pulled the sheath off and marveled at the black color of the steel. It gave off a nice shine, and it felt like he was destined to wield it. "I say, Gurthang has found a new owner," Lord Elrond said. "Thank you, Lord Elrond," Naruto said with a bow. "None needed. Gurthang chooses its wielder. It's yours," Lord Elrond told him as he left. "My new master, I serve you. Together we shall spill blood of the unjust." Gurthang said, "Yes, we will fight only the unjust, and protects those precious to us." Naruto replied, "Yes, my master." Gurthang replied as Naruto sheathed his new sword and left with a smile on his face. Line break. Xish chak. By now Naruto will be around 19. After a few more months of staying in Rivendell, Lord Elrond had received a message from his kin in the woods of Lothlorien. They wanted to speak with the new guest of Rivendell, Naruto. Lord Elrond told Naruto that he would leave for Lothlorien in a few days, with Gandalf acting as his guide. Naruto was nervous. Lothlorien was home to Lady Galadriel, one of the greatest protectors and the mightiest elf in all of Middle-earth. But he was also excited. This is the first time he would get to see the rest of world. Naruto prepared for the journey. He got Gurthang, which was tied on his waist, some pouches to hold some shuriken and kunai, and his remaining ninja tools. He also had his elven dagger, think Aragorn's, as well as his quiver of arrows and his elven bow. He also changed his clothing. He was able to find some more suitable clothing to his liking. He wore his headband and his jade necklace. He had some leather forearm guards, boots with black pants. He had a dark blue shirt with a crimson-orange jacket, just cloak. Think of a combination of Aragorn and Legolas. He stored some extra arrows and supplies in the storage seals on his arms, the rest on his horse. Naruto and Gandalf got ready to leave as they prepared their horses for the long journey. Elrond and the rest of the elves came to see the two off. "Thank you for everything, Lord Elrond. I can never repay such kindness." Naruto thanked him as he bowed. "You are quite welcome. Should your journey ever take you back here, you are more than welcome to stay," Lord Elrond told him as Naruto smiled. They hugged goodbye as Naruto and Gandalf got on their horses. "Are you ready, Naruto?" Gandalf asked. "As I'll ever be," Naruto said as the two rode off, leaving Rivendell and towards Lothlorien. The journey to Lothlorien was a long one. Gandalf led him down the path that followed the mountains that stretched from the hills of Angmar up north to the very foots of Isengard. As they rode through the land, Naruto was in awe at the beauty and wide open areas they traveled. He had never seen anything like this back home. One night when they had made camp, Gandalf had wandered off, saying, "I'm just looking ahead." Naruto was at the fire, eating some meat, when he heard a scream in the distance. He grabbed his sword and bow and ran in the direction of the scream. He then saw a fire in the distance and heard some voices. He crouched and was stealthy as he got closer. He then found the source of the scream. It was a family, a husband, wife, and their two daughters. They were prisoners to some orcs. They were tied up as the orcs ransacked their camp and terrified them. The mother held her children close as some of the orcs beat up the husband. Naruto tightened his fists in anger at seeing this. He needed to help. He then saw an Uruk who seemed to be in charge. He was large, had a spiked shoulder guard, red war paint on his face and shoulder, and a sword covered in blood. "All right, you maggots, let's get a move on," the Uruk told the orcs as they prepared to leave. Naruto needed to save the family, and he needed to do it soon. They were about to leave, so he needed to stop them. There were two orcs watching over the wife and daughters, while the one was restraining the husband. The other 6 were with the Uruk, preparing to leave. Naruto grabbed his bow and readied 3 Hirashin arrows. He shot one near the man, another near the group of orcs, and another near their horses. He then drew his sword and Hirashin to the seal near the man. The orc was restraining the man with rope as the man struggled. "Enough! Keep fighting and I'll gut you like a stuck pig." The orc threatened until he heard a snick. The man was confused until the orc's head fell off. He then saw the blonde-haired man with the whisker marks holding the bloodied sword. The 2 orcs near the wife and children were shocked to see what happened, but quickly regained composure and drew their swords and attacked. But Naruto then drew some shuriken and kunai and hit the two orcs in the throat. The orcs fell down with blood spilling from their wounds. Naruto quickly cut the man free, and the husband went over to his family. The other orcs saw this and quickly drew their weapons as the Uruk ran at Naruto the two locked swords. "Ha, this rat thinks he can match up to Nazdug Bloodhand. I can't wait to paint with your blood." The two separated as Nazdug swung down, but Naruto vanished. Nazdug looked around and turned to see Naruto reappear in an orange flash and beheaded two orcs. The four remaining orcs were frightened to see him appear out of nowhere. Naruto then attacked an orc and sliced off its arm and stabbed it in the chest. Naruto then parried and blocked a slash from an orc. He ducked under a swipe and kicked the orc in the chest. He blocked another slash, head-butted the orc in the face, and then stabbed him in the chest, and then slashed upward, causing blood to fly. He then grabbed his dagger and locked swords with another orc, then pushed him back and stabbed his dagger in the orc's neck and pulled it out, causing blood to squirt out of the neck wound. The final orc tried to slash him, but Naruto vanished and then reappeared behind the orc and cut off its leg and then its head. Nazdug then charged at Naruto and tackled him into a tree. Naruto kneed Nazdug in the chest and then punched him and kicked him back. Nazdug quickly regained his footing and grabbed a spare sword on the ground as Naruto had his sword and dagger ready. "Not bad, rat. Keep fighting. It'll make my victory all the more sweet," Nazdug shouted as he clashed swords with Naruto. Naruto swiped at the Uruk captain, but every time he tried to Nazdug would block or parry. This Uruk was good. Naruto then was able to stab him in the side with his sword, but the Uruk grabbed Naruto and head-butted him and kicked him away, causing Naruto to let go of his sword. Nazdug then pulled the sword out and then charged at Naruto. He tackled Naruto into a tree and then quickly tossed him over his shoulder and onto the ground. Naruto looked up to see Nazdug ready his sword. "Now I have your blood to spill," Nazdug yelled as he swung his sword down, but Naruto smirked and disappeared in an orange flash. Nazdug looked around and didn't see the human anywhere until Naruto quickly reappeared and slid behind Nazdug and sliced the back of the Uruk's knees. Uruk screamed in pain as he fell on his knees because he couldn't stay up. Naruto then slowly walked up to him and Nazdug just smirked. "Go ahead, do you worst," Nazdug taunted. Naruto sheathed his sword, causing Nazdug to look at Naruto confused. Naruto then held out his hand, and Nazdug couldn't believe what he saw next. Energy then began to form around Naruto's hand. The family watched in awe as they had never seen anything like this, and the only thing close were the stories told about wizards. When the energy formed a complete orb, Naruto thrusts it in the Uruk's chest. "Rasengan!" Naruto shouted as the power behind the attack separated the Uruk's upper body from the rest of him. Blood and guts exploded as they stained the ground. The bottom half of the body twitched a few times before it stopped completely. Naruto then went over to check up on the family. "Are you all right?" Naruto asked as he sheathed his sword. "Yes, we're fine. Thank you for saving us," the father said. "No thanks needed. Come, let's get you out of here," Naruto said as he helped them up and got them on the horses. He helped the smaller child onto the horse as the family prepared to leave. "Thank you again. Who are you?" the father asked. "Naruto Uzumaki, Master Shinobi, at your service." Naruto replied, "Thank you again, Naruto Uzumaki," the mother said as the children shouted thanks. "Again, none needed. Now get to safety," Naruto said as the family galloped away. Naruto then gathered the dead orcs and piled their bodies. He also grabbed some dead wood and sticks to make a pyre. He made some hand signs and breathed in fire-style Grand Fireball Jutsu and blew out a giant fireball which engulfed the bodies. The fire caused the bodies to burn. The smell of the burning orc flesh filled the air. Naruto then grabbed his arrows and walked back to his camp to see Gandalf there, smiling at him. "Well done, Naruto. Your first fight, and I must say you have proven your skills," Gandalf said with a smile. "Thanks. But where were you during the fight?" Naruto asked. "Looking ahead," Gandalf said. "And what brought you back?" Naruto asked. "Looking behind," Gandalf said as Naruto chuckled. "Line break sucks. Naruto and Gandalf continued on their journey to the woods of Lothlorien. They rode for weeks through a passage from Rivendell and down the river Anduin until they came upon the outskirts of Lothlorien. Gandalf told Naruto that they would enter by foot, and so they tied their horses to a tree and entered the forest. Naruto was in awe at the beauty, but felt a strong presence. "Naruto, you've come to us, bringing a great power," the voice in his head told him. Naruto looked around the forest, trying to find the source of the voice. Gandalf continued to lead him, smirking as he watched Naruto's reaction. After walking a few more feet, Naruto pulled out his bow and an arrow and readied to fire, and as soon as he did that, a group of elves pointed their bows at him. Naruto saw that he and Gandalf were surrounded, but Gandalf was not at all worried. "Relax, Naruto," Gandalf told Naruto, who slowly lowered his bow. Then an elf came up the front and spoke to Gandalf. "Mithrandir, we have been waiting for you," the elf said. "Haldir, it is good to see you. I believe we are expected," Gandalf said. "Yes, you and your guest," Haldir said, looking at Naruto. "Ah, forgive him. He was just startled," Gandalf said as Haldir nodded. "Of course, follow me," Haldir said. Gandalf and Naruto followed Haldir and the elves further into Lothlorien. They then reached a path that gave them a view of the center of the forest. "Naruto Uzumaki, may I present Karas Galadrim, capital of the woods of Lothlorien," Haldir said as Naruto gasped in awe at the structure, a massive tree that towered over the rest of the area. They entered the capital to reveal an intricate set of winding staircases, platforms and bridges interconnected throughout the tree. Haldir led him and Gandalf up the central staircase, and Naruto was in awe at the structure the elves were able to create, and at the peace and tranquility he felt as he walked through the tower. Haldir led them up the tree until they came to the main chamber of the area. It was adorned with crystal-white architecture and with elven words etched into the wood. Haldir led Gandalf and Naruto to the center near a set of stairs, and Gandalf smiled as Naruto looked up and saw the rulers of Lothlorien. "Naruto, I would like to introduce you to Lord Celeborn and Lady Galadriel, rulers of Karas Galadrim," Gandalf said as Celeborn and Galadriel walked down the steps and into view. Naruto was in awe at the power and grace that seemed to flow from them. Both were very young-looking, since elves were immortal, and Lady Galadriel, the Lady of Light, was a beacon of power for good. Naruto quickly realized he was in the presence of great power in Middle-earth, and bowed his head. "It is an honor to be in your presence, Lord Celeborn and Lady Galadriel," Naruto was able to say in Elvish as Gandalf and Lady Galadriel smiled at his attempt. "Welcome, Naruto Uzumaki," Celeborn said as Naruto nodded, "Thank you. Your arrival to our world has caused quite a stir." "Forgive me, I had no intention to cause such a concern," Naruto said. "There is nothing to apologize for. I imagine your arrival here has been a difficult adjustment," Galadriel said. "Yes, but I have been lucky to have some good friends help me adjust," Naruto said as Gandalf smiled. "Your presence has changed the events and the fate of Middle-earth. You will play a big role in the events to come," Celeborn said. "My presence changed the fate of Middle-earth?" Naruto asked, not knowing that he changed the fate of a whole world. "Yes, the fate of Middle-earth has changed, but you can help," Galadriel told him. "We know of your world and your past battles. I hope you are ready to fight again." "I am. If I need to fight, I will," Naruto said proud as Gandalf smiled. "Good. You may rest here." "Gandalf, we have some matters to discuss," Celeborn said as Gandalf nodded. Gandalf told Naruto to relax until they were ready to leave, and he did. Naruto put his gear down and relaxed in the tent, taking in the beauty and serenity of the elven home. He then felt a strong energy presence and turned to see Lady Galadriel walking. It seemed that she wanted him to follow her, and he did. He then saw her enter an area with a pool of water and a water dish in the middle. Naruto and Kurama felt a strong presence of energy radiate from the dish. Naruto walked forward as Lady Galadriel filled a pitcher of water from the pool. "Will you look into the mirror?" she asked. "What will I see?" Naruto asked. "Even the wisest cannot tell, for the mirror shows many things." she said as she poured the water into the mirror. Things that were, things that are, and some things that have yet not come to pass. Lady Galadriel told him as she stepped back. Naruto then walked up to the mirror and saw his reflection. Tsunade's jade necklace was hanging from his neck, close to the water, as his reflection now became distorted to show something else. It then showed a familiar mountain that Naruto soon recognized as the Hokage Mountain, back in Konoha. It then showed Tsunade and the rest of the village and the shinobi nations holding a funeral service for Naruto. Hinata was crying as Sakura comforted her. Kakashi was holding Jiraiya's tale of a gusty ninja book, and the rest of the village cried and grieved over the loss of the world's hero. Even the Toad summons had arrived to pay their respects. The image then changed to show Tsunade honoring Naruto by establishing a holiday on Naruto's birthday of October the 10th, in honor of his sacrifice and resilience to the harsh treatment he endured for years. The council even agreed to put Naruto's face on the Hokage's mountain to honor his wish to become Hokage. They put his face right next to Tsunade's as the whole village celebrated Naruto as their savior. Lady Galadriel saw that Naruto had a look of happiness, and tears were coming from his eyes from what he was seeing. The mirror then quickly changed from Konoha to show Middle-earth. It showed several brief images of Naruto with Gandalf and what looked like a company of dwarves. It then showed a beautiful female elf fighting beside Naruto and the dwarves against an army of orcs. The image then turned to show a dragon destroying a town and Naruto summoning Kurama to fight. Kurama and Naruto charged at the dragon, and when they collided, the image changed to a red fiery eye of pure evil. It was shouting in some language Naruto didn't understand, but he did hear his name and Naruto stepped back. He was breathing heavily over what he just saw, the implication that he was just shown possible future events. "What was that?" Naruto asked. "I believe you know what that was, as I know what you saw," Lady Galadriel said. "The fate of Middle-earth is changing, and you and your partner are in the center of it. The enemy knows this as well, and will stop at nothing to ensure your death, or your allegiance." Naruto was taken back by this. Was he such a big game changer that the enemy would try and eliminate him or turn him? And what were with the rest of the images? The dwarves, the hobbit, the dragon, and the elf? Naruto was confused, and Lady Galadriel saw this. "But fear not. I know that your pure heart is not so easily swayed. You will face many hardships on your journey, but you will overcome them, so long as you never forget what to fight for," Lady Galadriel said as Naruto understood. "To protect those that are precious to me," Naruto said as Lady Galadriel smiled. "Thank you, Lady Galadriel, and for letting me know that everyone back home is safe," Naruto said as he bowed his head. "You're welcome," Lady Galadriel told him as Naruto bid her farewell and went to sleep. But as he slept, he often wondered what those images were about and who that lady elf was. She was beautiful. Then there was the dragon. Where would he fight a dragon? Line break, X6. After a few days of resting, Gandalf and Naruto were going to leave Lothlorien. Gandalf told Naruto that he needed his help on a matter of the utmost importance, and Naruto agreed to help Gandalf because it seemed very important to Gandalf. Lord Celeborn and Lady Galadriel and the elves gathered to see the two off. They also presented Naruto with a gift for his journey. "Your journey is to be met with hardship and trouble, but fear not. You will succeed. As a gift, we give to you a companion to your sword, Gurthang," Lord Celeborn said as Lady Galadriel handed Naruto a beautiful elven bow, black, made from black yed wood. Belthroning, a bow of unequal strength, carried by Chief Marchwarden of Doriath, Beleg, many years ago. "May its strength help guide you on your journey," Lady Galadriel said as Naruto marveled at the beauty and strength that resonated from the bow. "Thank you both. I can never repay such kindness," Naruto said as he bowed in respect. "Be safe, and may your journey be what you desire," Lord Celeborn said as Naruto and Gandalf were escorted back to their horses at the edge of Lothlorien. "That is a fine gift," Gandalf said. "Yes, one that will be used for good," Naruto said as he put the bow on his back. "Now Gandalf, where to next?" "We are off to Bree, to the Inn of the Prancing Pony," Gandalf said. Why? Naruto asked. To see a young dwarf, Gandalf said as they rode off. They rode back the way they came through several towns, only stopping for supplies until they got to the town of Bree. Several weeks to a month passed as they came to a town for some supplies. Naruto went off to buy some food at an inn, and as he did, he saw a lot of people gather around one man as he told a story. And so there we were, surrounded by orcs as they ransacked our camp. They would have killed us any second until he arrived. In the blink of an eye, he appeared and cut off the orc's head, blood squirting out as the body fell lightless to the floor. He then saved my wife and children, easily taking out 2 orcs with throwing knives. He then faced against a group of orcs and moved with such speed and skill that he easily bested all of them. And he disappeared and reappeared in an orange flash as he cut down the orcs one by one, the man said as everyone was so intrigued by the story. Naruto then realized it was the father of the family he saved that was telling the story. Naruto smiled a little as he saw everyone so intrigued by the story. He then cut the orc leader's leg, and instead of using his sword to kill him, he sheathed it and performed magic, unlike I had ever heard of. He formed a ball of energy in his hand, and when he attacked the orc, his body was split in 2. The man said as people were listening even more. Then what happened? A child asked. The man saved my family and let us go, the man said. Who was this wizard? One of the listeners asked. He was Naruto Uzumaki, the Orange Flash, the man said as everyone to awe at his name. Naruto thought for a second and nodded. Not a bad name. He was a tall man with blonde spiky hair and 6 scars on his face like an animal. He moved with such speed that he was a flash, the man said as the crowd really enjoyed the story. Naruto then left the inn and returned to Gandalf with a smile on his face. It seems your reputation has already begun, Gandalf said. Yes, not a bad name. The Orange Flash. I like it, Naruto said with a smile as they left the town. A little corny, Kurama told Naruto as he just shook his head. Naruto and Gandalf continued to ride to Bree, and they were casually riding down the road as a group consisting of about 8 men stepped out from the trees with bows and swords drawn and stopped them. They were bandits. They thought that Gandalf was a vagabond and wanted everything they had. Naruto just shook his head in annoyance. He then performed his shadow clone jutsu, and when the men were shocked to see 8 copies of the blonde-headed man, the clones quickly knocked them out with punches to the back of the head. Gandalf then noticed that one of them was carrying a roll of parchment, but what was important was the message written on it. Gandalf realized what it was and quickened their haste to Bree. Line break xx. Night had settled over Middle-earth and on the village of Bree. Rain poured from the sky as the people of the village were moving about, heading home or to pubs and inns to enjoy themselves. One such figure that walked through the village was not a man because of the height in which he stood, but a dwarf. The dwarf had a cloak and hood on as he walked through the village until he arrived at the prancing pony. The figure turned to the street to see if he was being followed, and the light from a nearby lamp shined on his face to reveal him to be Thorin Oakenshield, the son of Thrain, son of Thror, the last king under the mountain. After Erebor came under siege by the dragon Smaug and the Battle of Moria, Thorin was next to be king of Durin's folk because his father was presumed dead. Thorin then entered the inn and was immediately hit with the loud noise of men and hobbits yelling and drinking their troubles away. He got himself a table and ordered some food as he relaxed and smoked some pipeweed. A waitress came by and handed him his food as he thanked her and ate. As he was eating his bread, he felt like he was being watched. He looked to his left and saw a rough and dangerous man staring at him. He looked to his right and saw another man looking at him intensely. Thorin then saw that they both got up and knew they were after him, so he reached for his sword. But before he could, 2 men sat at his table. Mind if we join you? Gandalf said. We'll have the same, Gandalf told the waitress. The 2 men who got up saw the 2 men sit by the dwarf and went back to their seats as Thorin relaxed. Thorin looked at the 2 men and recognized one as Gandalf the Grey, but was unfamiliar with the blonde-haired, whiskered-marked man next to him. We should introduce ourselves. My name is Gandalf. Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf said. I know who you are, Thorin said, "and may I introduce you to my compatriot, Naruto Uzumaki," Gandalf said, pointing to Naruto. "A pleasure," Naruto said. "So you are the Orange Flash I heard about in my travels," Thorin said. "More or less," Naruto said. "Well now, this is a fine chance." "What brings Thorin Oakenshield to Bree?" Gandalf asked. "I received word that my father had been seen wandering the wilds near Dunland. I went looking. I found no sign of him," Thorin said. "Ah, Thrain," Gandalf said. "You're like the others. You think he's dead," Thorin said. "I was not at the Battle of Moria," Gandalf said. "No, but I was," Thorin said as he remembered the battle like it was yesterday. "My grandfather Thror was slain. My father led a charge towards the Dimril Gate. He never returned. Thrain is gone, they told me. He is one of the fallen. But at the end of that battle, I searched amongst the slain, to the last body. My father was not among the dead." "Thorin, it's been a long time since anything but rumor was heard of Thrain," Gandalf said. "He still lives." "I am sure of it," Thorin said. "The ring your grandfather wore, one of the 7 given to the dwarf lords many years ago, what became of it?" Gandalf asked as Naruto and Thorin were confused as his question. "He gave it to my father before they went into battle," Thorin said. "So Thrain was wearing it when he went missing?" Gandalf asked as Thorin nodded. "That's that then." "There you are," the waitress said as she gave Gandalf and Naruto a plate of food. "Thank you," Naruto said as she left. "I know my father came to see you before the Battle of Moria." "What did you say to him?" Thorin asked. "I urged him to march upon Erebor, to rally the 7 armies of the dwarves, to destroy the dragon and take back the Lonely Mountain. And I would say the same to you. Take back your homeland." Gandalf said. "This is no chance meeting, is it, Gandalf?" Thorin asked. "No, it is not," Gandalf said as he nodded to Naruto, who took out a parchment. "The Lonely Mountain troubles me, Thorin. That dragon has sat there long enough. Sooner or later, darker minds will turn towards Erebor. We ran into some unsavory characters whilst traveling on the Greenway. They mistook Gandalf for a vagabond," Naruto said. "I imagine they regretted that," Thorin said. "One of them was carrying a message," Naruto said as he showed Thorin the message. "It is black speech, a promise of payment," Gandalf said. "For what?" Thorin asked. "Your head. Someone wants you dead. Thorin, you can wait no longer. You are the heir to the throne of Durin. Unite the armies of the dwarves. Together you have the might and power to retake Erebor," Gandalf said. "Summon a meeting of the 7 dwarf families. Demand they stand by their oath." The 7 armies swore that oath to the one who wields the king's jewel, the Arkenstone. Is it the only thing that will unite them? And in case you have forgotten, that jewel was stolen by Smaug," Thorin said as the 2 mercenaries walked by the table. Naruto grabbed his sword and then performed a hand sign and created a ball of fire, which the men saw and ran away as Naruto and Gandalf smirked. "What if we were to help you reclaim it?" Gandalf asked. "How?" Thorin asked. "The Arkenstone lies half a world away, buried beneath the foot of a fire-breathing dragon." "Yes, it does. Luckily, Naruto here will help us with that. All we need is a burglar," Gandalf said. Line break XXX. At this point, Naruto is about 20-21, a bit older looking with matured facial features. Time had passed since the meeting at the Prancing Pony. Thorin took Gandalf's advice and had called for a meeting of the 7 dwarf families and even put together a company of dwarves who agreed to go on the journey to the Lonely Mountain. All that was needed was to find a burglar, and Gandalf knew where he could find one. Naruto followed Gandalf as they traveled to the Shire, the home of the hobbits. "So Gandalf, who is this hobbit we're looking for?" Naruto asked as they walked through the Shire. "Bilbo Baggins, a young hobbit I remember many years ago. He would be the perfect burglar for our company," Gandalf said. "Again, why am I not the burglar?" Naruto asked, knowing he was skilled and stealthy enough to be one. "Because I fear that your skills will be more needed as a soldier rather than a burglar, and the fact that Smaug is accustomed to the smell of a dwarf or a man while the scent of a hobbit is unknown. And I hope that this will be a good experience for young Mr. Baggins," Gandalf said as Naruto nodded. They walked through the Shire, as Naruto took in the peace and serenity of the town. Nature was unhinged as the hobbits lived in peace. Naruto smiled at the peace and harmony he felt, and then saw that hobbit they were looking for. The young hobbit was smoking pipeweed and puffed out a perfect circle and closed his eyes as he relaxed. Gandalf then did a little magic and turned the smoke into a little bird, which flew into the hobbit's nose, causing him to open his eyes to see two men standing in the road. "Good morning," Bilbo said. "What do you mean? Do you mean to wish me a good morning, or do you mean that it is a good morning, whether I want it or not? Or perhaps you meant to say that you feel good on this particular morning? Or are you simply stating that this is a morning to be good on?" Gandalf asked, as Naruto chuckled seeing Bilbo's reaction. "All of them at once, I suppose," Bilbo said as Gandalf looked at him. "Can I help you?" "That remains to be seen. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure," Gandalf said as Bilbo looked at Gandalf weird. "An adventure? No, I don't imagine anyone west of Bree would have much interest in adventures. Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things. Make you late for dinner," Bilbo said as he got his mail and looked through it. "Well, good morning. To think that I should have lived to be Good Morning Ed by Belladonna Took's son, as if I were selling buttons at the door," Gandalf said. "Beg your pardon," Bilbo said. "You've changed, and not entirely for the better, Bilbo Baggins," Gandalf said. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Bilbo asked. "Well, you know my name, although you don't remember I belong to it. I'm Gandalf, and Gandalf means—" "Me?" Gandalf said. "Gandalf. Not Gandalf, the wandering wizard who made such excellent fireworks. Old Took used to have them on Midsummer's Eve. No idea you were still in business," Bilbo said. "And where else should I be?" Gandalf asked, as Bilbo didn't seem to have an answer as Naruto chuckled. "Well, I'm pleased to find you remember something about me, even if it's only my fireworks. And this is my compatriot Naruto Uzumaki," Gandalf said as Naruto bowed. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Baggins," Naruto said as Bilbo nodded back. "Well, that's decided. It'll be very good for you. And most amusing for me. I shall inform the others," Gandalf said as he and Naruto were about to leave, but Bilbo stopped them. "Inform the who? What? No, no, wait. We do not want any adventures here, thank you. Not today. I suggest you try over the hill, or across the water." "Good morning," Bilbo said as he went into his home and shut the door. "Well, did that go as you planned?" Naruto asked. "More or less," Gandalf replied. Gandalf then went up to the door and used his staff to draw a symbol on the bottom of the door. Bilbo heard this and looked out the window near his door to see what caused the noise, and then saw Gandalf's face look through the window and he hid inside. "Come along, Naruto. We must gather the others for tonight," Gandalf said as they left. Line break Iskaksh X. Night had settled over the Shire as the hobbits had returned to their homes for dinner and to relax. Bilbo had all but forgotten his encounter with Gandalf and Naruto, and it was out of his mind. He was fixing himself a nice dinner of freshly caught fish from the market and enjoying his peace, not knowing that it would shortly change. Just before he was going to dig in, he heard the doorbell ring. He opened it to see a large and brutish dwarf at the door. "Dwalin, at your service," the dwarf said as he bowed. "Bilbo Baggins, at yours," Bilbo said as Dwalin walked in. "Do we know each other?" "No, which way, laddie? Is it down there?" Dwalin asked as he took off his coat. Is what down where?" Bilbo asked as Dwalin gave him his coat. "Supper. He'd said there'd be food, and lots of it," Dwalin said. He said? Who said?" Bilbo asked. Dwalin found his way to the kitchen and was eating the dinner that Bilbo had made. Bilbo sat to the side watching as Dwalin tore into the fish he made, and when the meat was all gone, he ate the head. "Very good this anymore?" Dwalin asked. "Oh, right," Bilbo said as he grabbed a plate of biscuits, took one and put it in his pocket, and gave the rest to the dwarf. "Help yourself." Dwalin ate the biscuits as Bilbo readied himself to talk. It's just that, I wasn't expecting company," Bilbo said to Dwalin as the doorbell rang again. "That'll be the door," Dwalin said. Bilbo opened the door to see another dwarf, but with a long white beard and white hair. Balin, at your service. Balin introduced himself as he bowed. Good evening, Bilbo said. Yes, yes it is. Though I think it might rain later. Am I late? Balin asked. Late for what? Bilbo asked as Balin turned to see Dwalin. Oh, ha, Balin said, getting Dwalin's attention. Evening, brother. By my beard, you're shorter and wider than last we met, Dwalin said. Wider, not shorter. Sharp enough for both of us, Balin said as they chuckled. They then head-butted each other as part of their greeting and laughed as Bilbo just watched in confusion. Excuse me, sorry, I hate to interrupt, but the thing is, I'm not entirely sure you're in the right house, Bilbo said as the two dwarves talked and checked out the food pantry. It's not that I don't like visitors. I like visitors as much as the next hobbit. But I do like to know them before they come visiting. The thing is, I don't know either of you. Not in the slightest. I don't mean to be blunt, but I had to speak my mind. I'm sorry, Bilbo said as Dwalin and Balin stopped and looked at him. Apology accepted, Balin said as he went back to talking to Dwalin. Bilbo then heard the doorbell ring again. Bilbo opened his door to see two dwarves, Fili and Kili, at your service. The brothers introduced themselves. You must be Mr. Boggins, Kili said. Nope, you can't come in. You've got the wrong house, Bilbo said as he shut the door, but Kili stopped him. What? Has it been cancelled? Kili asked. No one told us, Fili said. Cancelled? No, nothing's been cancelled, Bilbo said. That's a relief, Kili said as they walked in. Careful with these, I just had them sharpened, Fili said as he handed Bilbo his swords and daggers. It's nice, this place. Did you do it yourself? Kili asked as he scrapped some mud of his boot on a box. What? No, it's been in the family for years, Bilbo said as he saw Kili scrapping the mud of his shoe. That's my mother's glory box. Can you please not do that? Fili, Kili, come on, give us a hand, Dwalin said as he led them to the dining room. Mr. Dwalin, Kiki said, happy to see him after a long time. Let's shove this in the hallway, otherwise we'll never get everyone in, Balin told them. Everyone? How many more are there? Bilbo asked as the doorbell rang again. Oh, no. There's nobody home, Bilbo yelled as he tossed the weapons and packs aside. Go away and bother somebody else. There's far too many dwarves in my dining room as it is. If this is some clothead's idea of a joke, haha, I can only say it is in very poor taste. Bilbo opened the door and 8 other dwarves spilled into his home, and they fell and piled on top of each other. They groaned in pain as they were piled on top of each other. Bilbo was shocked to see so many dwarves, but then saw Gandalf and Naruto outside the house. Gandalf and Naruto leaned down so Bilbo could see them. Gandalf smiled as Naruto waved. Gandalf, Bilbo said, now knowing why these dwarves were here. Bilbo went to change into some better clothes, as the dwarves Naruto and Gandalf were getting food and preparing for supper. The dwarves were bringing food from Bilbo's pantry as he walked back in to see all his food being brought to the table. Excuse me, that's my chicken. If you don't, that's my wine. Excuse me, Bilbo said to the dwarf, Bifur. Bilbo saw the dwarf had a small axe in his head. Ah, Kusbakur, Bifur said in Dwarfish as he pointed to the axe in his head and went to the table. Sorry if the Dwarfish isn't on point. Owen then walked up behind Bilbo. He's got an injury, he said. You mean the axe in his head? Bilbo asked. Owen then grabbed his ear trumpet and put it into his ear. Dead? No, only between his ears. His legs work fine, Owen said as he went to the pantry. Bilbo saw the dwarves bringing all of his food to the table. Put those back. Put that back. Not the jam, please. Excuse me, Bilbo said as he then saw Bombur carrying 3 large wheels of cheese. It's a tad excessive, isn't it? Have you got a cheese knife? Bilbo asked. Cheese knife. He eats it by the block, Bofur told Bilbo. Bilbo then stopped Owen from using some antique chairs while the rest of the dwarves, Gandalf and Naruto, were setting the table. Dori then came up to Gandalf. Excuse me, Mr. Gandalf, may I tempt you with a cup of chamomile? Oh no, thank you, Dori. A little red wine, I think, Gandalf said. What about you, Mr. Naruto? Dori asked. Thank you very much, Master Dori, Naruto said as he took a cup of tea, and Dori nodded. Gandalf then moved to the hall. As the dwarves were moving, he did a head count. Fili, Kili, Oin, Gloin, Dwalin, Balin, Bifur, Bofur, Bombur, Dori, Nori, Ori, Gandalf said as Bifur walked up to him. Iamt Hotf, Bout Kalima, Bifur said as he then pat his elbow. Yes, you're quite right, Bifur. We appear to be one dwarf short. Gandalf said, He is late is all. He travelled north to a meeting of our kin. He will come, Dwalin told Gandalf. Mr. Gandalf, a little glass of red wine, as requested. It has a fruity bouquet, Dori said as he handed Gandalf a small glass. Ah, cheers, Gandalf said as he drank the wine, but noticed the glass was so small he nearly got nothing. The dwarves then gathered around the table and dug into the gorgeous and delicious food on the table. Roast chicken, leg of lamb, sausage, potatoes, roasted vegetables and plenty of ale. Everyone dug in. Bomber, catch, Bofur said as he threw an egg in the air and Bomber caught it in his mouth and everyone cheered. Naruto enjoyed the food and company. The dwarves were a little raucous, but they were good people. Bilbo saw how much of a mess they were making and then looked back at his pantry and exhausted in frustration at how barren it was because all of his food was gone. The eating and raucous behavior and festivities continued until the last piece of meat and crumb of bread was eaten. Then the dwarves were relaxing, with many drinking more ale and others smoking pipeweed. Bilbo saw Nori cleaning a glass with something that wasn't a dish rag. Excuse me, that is a doily, not a dishcloth, Bilbo said as he grabbed the doily back. But it's full of holes, Bofur said. It's supposed to look like that. It's crochet, Bilbo said. Oh, and a wonderful game it is too, if you have the balls for it. Bofur joked as the others laughed. Bebother and confusticate these dwarves, Bilbo said in frustration. My dear Bilbo, what on earth is the mater? Gandalf asked. What's the matter? I'm surrounded by dwarves. What are they doing? Bilbo asked. Oh, they're quite a merry gathering, once you get used to them, Gandalf said. I don't want to get used to them. Look at the state of the kitchen. There's mud trod into the carpet. They've pillaged the pantry. I'm not even going to tell you what they've done in the bathroom. They've all but destroyed the plumbing. I don't understand what they're doing in my house, Bilbo said in frustration. Ori then walked out to Bilbo, holding a plate. Excuse, I'm sorry to interrupt. But what should I do with my plate? Ori asked as Fili walked out. Give it here, Ori. I'll handle it, Fili said as he tossed it over to Kili to throw it to Bifur, who was by the sink. They had more dwarves throwing plates to Fili and then to Kili, as Naruto and Gandalf ducked as plates and cups were sent flying to the kitchen. Bilbo became frantic as his dishes were sure to get broken. Excuse me, that's my mother's Westfarthing pottery. It's over 100 years old, Bilbo shouted as the dwarves didn't stop. Then the dwarves began to make sounds, stomping their feet in a rhythm and clanking the knives and forks. And can you not do that? You'll blunt them, Bilbo said. Ooh, you hear that, lads? He says we'll blunt the knives. Bofur joked. Insert blunt the knives song. Blunt the knives, bend the forks, smash the bottles and burn the corks, chip the glasses and crack the plates. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates. Cut the cloth, tread on the fat. Leave the bones on the bedroom mat. Pour the milk on the pantry floor. Smash the wine on every door. Dump the crocks in a boiling bowl. Pound them up with a thumping pole. When you're finished, if they are whole, send them down the hall to roll. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates. They sang as they sent all the plates and cups to the kitchen, and by the time it was over, Bilbo was surprised to see that all of his dishes were clean and not broken. All the dwarves laughed as they saw the shocked look on Bilbo's face. Naruto and Gandalf chuckled as they saw Bilbo's shocked expression, but the laughter soon stopped when they heard 3 loud knocks on the front door. He is here, Gandalf said as they moved to the door. Naruto opened it to reveal Thorin. Thorin saw Gandalf and Naruto and the group of 12 dwarves. Gandalf, Naruto, I thought you said this place would be easy to find. I lost my way twice. I wouldn't have found it at all had it not been for that mark on the door, Thorin said as he walked in. Mark? There's no mark on that door. It was painted a week ago, Bilbo said. There is a mark. I put it there myself. Bilbo Baggins, allow me to introduce the leader of our company, Thorin Oakenshield, Gandalf said as Thorin looked at Bilbo. So, "This is the hobbit. Tell me, Mr. Baggins, have you done much fighting?" Thorin asked. "Pardon me," Bilbo asked. "Axe or sword? What's your weapon of choice?" Thorin asked. "Well, I do have some skill at conkers, if you must know, but I fail to see why that's relevant," Bilbo said. "Thought as much. He looks more like a grocer than a burglar," Thorin said as everyone chuckled. They then moved to the dining room so Thorin could eat and discuss what happened at the meeting of the dwarf lords. "What news from the meeting of Ered Luin? Did they all come?" Balin asked. "Aye, envoys from all 7 kingdoms," Thorin said. "And what did the dwarves of the Iron Hills say?" "Is Dane with us?" Dwalin asked as Thorin pushed his food away. "They will not come," Thorin said as everyone shook their heads and were depressed by the news that no one else would be helping them. "They say this quest is ours and ours alone," Thorin said as Bilbo walked in. "You're going on a quest?" Bilbo asked. "Bilbo, my dear fellow, let us have a little more light," Gandalf said as he nodded, and Bilbo brought over a candle and Naruto lit it by making a hand sign and make a small fire in his hands that caught the wick on fire. Bilbo was shocked as Naruto chuckled and smirked. Gandalf then took a piece of paper out of his robes and unfolded it and placed it on the table. Far to the east, over ranges and rivers, beyond woodlands and wastelands, lies a single solitary peak. Gandalf said as he pointed to the mountain on the map, and Bilbo looked over and read. "The Lonely Mountain," Bilbo said. "Aye, Owen has read the portents, and the portents say it is time," Gloin said, while others didn't really believe Owen's prophecies. "Ravens have been seen flying back to the mountain, as it was foretold. When the birds of yore return to Erebor, the reign of the beast will end," Owen said as Bilbo heard this and was interested. What beast?" Bilbo asked. "That would be a reference to Smaug the Terrible, chiefest and greatest calamity of our age," Bofur said as everyone nodded. "Airborne fire-breather, teeth like razors, claws like meat hooks, extremely fond of precious metal." "Yes, I know what a dragon is," Bilbo said. "I'm not afraid. I'm up for it. I'll give him a taste of dwarvish iron right up his jacksie," Ori yelled as some cheered at his enthusiasm, while Dori pulled back to his seat. "Sit down," Dori said. "The task would be difficult enough with an army behind us, but we number just 13, and not 13 of the best, nor brightest," Balin said as some thought and shouted that he was talking about him. Fili then slammed his hand on the table, quieting them. "We may be few in number, but we're fighters. All of us. To the last dwarf," Fili shouted. "And you forget we have 2 wizards in our company. Naruto and Gandalf will have killed hundreds of dragons during their time," Kili said, as everyone agreed. "Oh, well, I wouldn't say that. How many then?" Dori asked Gandalf. "What?" Gandalf asked. "How many dragons have you killed?" Dori asked. Everyone looked at Gandalf to provide an answer, but he didn't give one. Naruto chuckled a little, seeing Gandalf almost shut up in silence, but soon the group began to argue with one another. "No more," Thorin shouted, getting them to stop. "If we have read these signs, do you not think others will have read them too? Rumors have begun to spread. The dragon Smaug has not been seen for 60 years. Eyes look east to the mountain, assessing, wondering, weighing the risk. Perhaps the vast wealth of our people now lies unprotected. Do we sit back while others claim what is rightfully ours? Or do we seize this chance to take back Erebor?" Thorin shouted as everyone cheered. "You forget, the front gate is sealed," Balin said, getting their attention. "There is no way into the mountain." "That, my dear Balin, is not entirely true," Gandalf said as he took out an old dwarvish key that Thorin recognized. "How did you come by this?" Thorin asked. "It was given to me by your father, by Thrain, for safekeeping. It's yours now," Gandalf said as he handed the key to Thorin. "If there's a key, there must be a door," Fili said as Gandalf nodded and pointed to the runes on the parchment. "These runes speak of a hidden passage to the lower halls," Gandalf said. "There's another way in," Kili said with a smile. "Well, if we can find it. But dwarf doors are invisible when closed. The answer lies hidden somewhere in this map, and I do not have the skill to find it. But there are others in Middle-earth who can," Gandalf said as everyone talked amongst themselves. The task I have in mind will require a great deal of stealth and no small amount of courage. But if we are careful and clever, I believe that it can be done. That's why we need a burglar, Ori said. And a good one too. An expert, I'd imagine. Bilbo said as everyone looked at him. And are you? Gloin asked. Am I what? Bilbo asked. He said he's an expert, Owen said as everyone chuckled. Me? No. I'm not a burglar. I've never stolen a thing in my life, Bilbo said. Well, I'm afraid I have to agree with Mr. Baggins. He's hardly burglar material, Balin said as Bilbo nodded. Aye, the wild is no place for gentle folk who can neither fight nor fend for themselves, Dwalin added. Then the dwarves began to argue amongst themselves about whether or not Bilbo should go with some of them, saying he would be fine, while others said he shouldn't come. Gandalf then decided to end their bickering as he channeled his magic and created a dark fog behind him. Enough. If I say Bilbo Baggins is a burglar, then a burglar he is, Gandalf said, which shut up everyone as the magic fog dissipated. Hobbits are remarkable light on their feet. In fact, they can pass unseen by most should they choose. And while the dragon is accustomed to the smell of dwarf or man, the scent of a hobbit is all but unknown to him, which gives us a distinct advantage, Gandalf said as the then turned to Thorin. You asked me to find the 15th member of this company, and I have chosen Mr. Baggins. There's a lot more to him than appearances suggest, and he's got a great deal more to offer than any of you know, including himself, Gandalf said as Bilbo looked at him. You must trust me on this. Very well, we will do it your way. Give him the contract, Thorin told Balin. It's just the usual summary of out-of-pocket expenses, time required, remuneration, funeral arrangements, so forth, Balin said. Funeral arrangements? Bilbo asked, scared, as he then opened the long contract and read it over. Thorin then leaned in closer to Gandalf. I cannot guarantee his safety, Thorin said. Understood, Gandalf said. Nor will I be responsible for his fate, Thorin said. Agreed, Gandalf replied. Terms, cash on delivery, up to but not exceeding 1/15 of total profit, if any. Seems fair. Present company shall not be liable for injuries inflicted by or sustained as a consequence thereof, including but not limited to lacerations, evisceration, incineration? Bilbo asked. Oh, aye. He'll melt the flesh of your bones in the blink of an eye, Bofur told Bilbo, as Bilbo didn't seem well. You all right, laddie? Balin asked. Yeah, Bilbo said as he breathed in and out. Feel a bit faint. Think furnace with wings, Bofur said. Air, I need air, Bilbo said. Flash of light, searing pain, then poof. You're nothing more than a pile of ash. Bofur joked as Bilbo looked at him. Nope, Bilbo said before he fainted. Oh, very helpful, Bofur, Gandalf said as Naruto helped Bilbo up and into a chair. I'll be all right. Just let me sit quietly for a moment. Bilbo told everyone as he and Gandalf talked in private. You've been sitting quietly for far too long. Tell me, when did doilies and your mother's dishes become so important to you? Gandalf asked. I remember a young hobbit who was always running off in search of elves in the woods. Who would stay out late, come home after dark trailing mud and twigs and fireflies. A young hobbit who would like nothing better than to find out what was beyond the borders of the Shire. The world is not in your books or maps. It's out there, Gandalf said, pointing to the window. I can't just go running off into the blue. I am a Baggins, of Bag End, Bilbo said. You are also a Took, Gandalf said as Bilbo scoffed. Did you know that your great-great-great-great-uncle Bulrora Took was so large he could ride a real horse? Gandalf asked. Yes, Bilbo said. Well, he could. In the Battle of Greenfields, he charged the goblin ranks. He swung his club so hard, it knocked the Goblin King's head clean off, and it sailed 100 yards through the air and went down a rabbit hole. And thus the battle was won. And the game of golf invented at the same time, Gandalf said. I do believe you made that up, Bilbo said. Well, all good stories deserve embellishment, Gandalf said as he sat down. You'll have a tale or two to tell of your own when you come back, Gandalf said as Bilbo chuckled. Can you promise that I will come back? Bilbo asked. No, and if you do, you will not be the same, Gandalf told him. That's what I thought. Sorry, Gandalf, I can't sign this. You've got the wrong hobbit, Bilbo said as he went to his room. Well, it appears we have lost our burglar. Probably for the best. The odds were always against us. After all, what are we? Merchants, miners, tinkers, toy makers? Chuckles. Hardly the stuff of legend, Balin said to Thorin. There are a few warriors amongst us, Thorin said. Old warriors, Balin commented. I would take each and every one of these dwarves over an army from the Iron Hills. For when I called upon them, they answered. Loyalty, honor, a willing heart. I can ask no more than that, Thorin said. You don't have to do this. You have a choice. You've done honorable by our people. You have built a new life for us in the Blue Mountains, a life of peace and plenty, a life that is worth more than all the gold in Erebor. Balin told Thorin, From my grandfather to my father, this has come to me. They dreamt of the day when the dwarves of Erebor would reclaim their homeland. There is no choice, Balin, not for me, Thorin said. Then we are with you, laddie. We will see it done, and we will make it work, Balin said as Thorin smiled. The dwarves gathered into the study as they looked at the fireplace and smoked some pipeweed. Gandalf was sitting in a chair as Naruto walked through the house and saw Bilbo. So, you decided not to come with us? Naruto asked Bilbo. Naruto. No, I have no place in this company. I'm not a warrior or a burglar. I'm a hobbit. You heard them out there. I won't last a day out there, Bilbo said. Maybe, maybe not. Just because you can't fight with a sword or survive in the wilderness doesn't mean that you have no place with us, Naruto said. Please, they're right. I wouldn't survive out there, Bilbo said. You don't know that. Life's an adventure, and it's not in books or maps. It's outside, waiting to be explored, but only if you're willing to step outside. Naruto said as Bilbo thought for a moment. Naruto stood up. To me, I think you would make an excellent burglar, Naruto said before he joined the others. The dwarves had gathered in the study and all hummed a solemn tune. Insert Misty Mountain song. Far over the misty mountain cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away, ere break of day, to find our long-forgotten gold. The pines were roaring on the height, the winds were moaning in the night. The fire was red, it flaming spread, the trees like torches blazed with light. Line break XXXXX. The next day had come as Bilbo Baggins woke up from his sleep. Bilbo got up from his bed and walked around his home to see the dwarves. Gandalf and Naruto were gone. Hello? Bilbo called out, but no one answered. He checked every room and saw that they were gone and exhaled in relief. Bilbo walked into his study, happy that the dwarves were gone, but seemed a little upset and bored. He then saw the contract Balin gave him on his desk, and the next thing that happened, he quickly packed and got dressed and ran out of his home with the contract in hand. He ran through the Shire, carrying a pack of clothes and supplies with a look of excitement on his face. Many of the hobbits he passed thought he was a bit daft as he ran. He ran down the Shire hills as one of the hobbits called out to him. Here, Mr. Bilbo, where are you off to? The hobbit shouted. Can't stop, I'm already late, Bilbo shouted. Late for what? The hobbit shouted. I'm going on an adventure, Bilbo shouted as he ran out of the Shire. Meanwhile, Naruto, Gandalf, and the company of dwarves were on horses and ponies as they slowly rode through the wood. Many dwarves were saying that the Shire was a pointless stop beside the food. Naruto then heard something and turned his head to see none other than Bilbo running after them with a pack, holding the contract. Wait, wait, Bilbo shouted as the group stopped as Bilbo ran up to them, and many were surprised he was here. I signed it, Bilbo said as he held up the contract and handed it to Balin. Balin smiled as he looked at the contract and at Bilbo's signature. Everything appears to be in order. Welcome, Master Baggins, to the company of Thorin Oakenshield, Balin said as he smiled at Bilbo, and the others shared a light laugh. Bilbo looked at Naruto and Gandalf, and both smiled and nodded at the hobbit. Give him a pony, Thorin said as they resumed their journey. No, that won't be necessary. Thank you. I'm sure I can keep up on foot. I've done my fair share of walking holidays, you know. Even got as far as Frogmorton once, Bilbo said as Philly and Killy grabbed Bilbo and lifted him onto a pony. As they rode away, some of the dwarves passed pouches of coins to one another as Bilbo was confused. "What's that about?" Bilbo asked Naruto. "Oh, they took wagers on whether or not you would show up. Most of them bet you wouldn't," Naruto told Bilbo. "And what did you and Gandalf think?" Bilbo asked as Gandalf and Naruto caught 2 pouches of coins and tossed one to Gandalf. "My dear fellow, I never doubted you for a second," Gandalf said to Bilbo, who chuckled. The company kept moving as they passed through forests, fields, and mountainsides until they stopped for camp. They ate dinner and then went to bed. Fili and Kili stayed up to watch over the fire as Naruto was sitting on a rock and looking at the sky, while Gandalf was sitting on a rock and smoking some pipeweed. Bilbo couldn't sleep because he was next to Bomba and Bomba was a loud snorer. Bilbo got fed up and stood up and stretched. He then went over to his pony and pat her head. "Hello, girl. Who's a good girl?" Bilbo asked as he looked around to make sure that no one was looking. He then took out an apple he had in his pocket and the horse happily ate it. Bilbo smiled, but then heard a weird screech in the night. Kili, Fili, Gandalf, and Naruto heard that as well. "What was that?" Bilbo asked. "Orcs," Kili said. "Orcs?" Bilbo asked as Thorin heard him say that and woke up. "Throat cutters. There'll be dozens of them out there. The lowlands are crawling with them," Fili said. "They strike in the wee small hours when everyone's asleep. Quick and quiet, no screams, just lots of blood," Kili said as Bilbo looked concerned. Kili and Fili chuckled as they saw Bilbo's reaction. "You think that's funny? You think a midnight raid by orcs is a joke?" Thorin asked. "We didn't mean anything by it," Kili said. "No, you didn't. You know nothing of the world," Thorin said as they went to the side of the ridge they were camped on and looked out to the forest. Balin then walked over to the fire. "Don't mind him, laddie. Thorin has more cause than most to hate orcs," Balin said. "What happened?" Naruto asked. "After the dragon took the Lonely Mountain, King Thror tried to reclaim the ancient dwarf kingdom of Moria. But our enemy had got there first. Moria had been taken by legions of orcs, led by the most vile of all their race, Azog, the Defiler. The giant Gundabad orc had sworn to wipe out the line of Durin," Balin said as everyone was engrossed in the story. "He began by beheading the king. Thrain, Thorin's father, was driven mad by grief. He went missing. Taken prisoner or killed, we did not know. We were leaderless. Defeat and death were upon us. That is when I saw him," Balin said, looking at Thorin, a young dwarf prince facing down the pale orc. He stood alone against this terrible foe, his armor rent, wielding nothing but an oaken branch as a shield. Azog the Defiler learned that day that the line of Durin would not be so easily broken, Balin said as he and Thorin remembered that day. "Our forces rallied and drove the orcs back. Our enemy had been defeated, but there was no feast, nor song that night, for our dead were beyond the count of grief. We few had survived, and I thought to myself then, there is one who I could follow. There is one I could call king," Balin said. Thorin then turned around to the camp to see everyone standing up and looking at him, having heard the story. Thorin smiled and nodded as he walked back to his spot. "And the pale orc? What happened to him?" Bilbo asked Balin. "He slunk back into the hole whence he came. That filth died of his wounds long ago," Thorin said. Balin and Gandalf shared a look, thinking that the statement may not be accurate. A good distance from the camp, in the forest, was a pack of orc scouts on wargs and observed the dwarves with an evil smirk. The lead orc scout then spoke in black speech. "Send word to the master. We have found the dwarf scum," the orc leader told a scout. The next day, the company kept moving on through the woods on their horses and ponies. Soon the weather turned sour and rain poured from the sky. Naruto put on his hood as many of the dwarves put on hoods or hats to shield them from the rain. "Here, Mr. Gandalf, can't you do something about this deluge?" Dory asked Gandalf. "It is raining, Master Dwarf, and it will continue to rain until the rain is done. If you wish to change the weather of the world, you should find yourself another wizard," Gandalf said. "Are there any?" Bilbo asked Gandalf. "What?" Gandalf replied. "Other wizards," Bilbo said. "There are 5 of us. The greatest of our order is Saruman the White. Then there are the 2 blue wizards. Do you know, I've quite forgotten their names, Gandalf said. And who is the fifth? Bilbo asked. Well, that would be Radagast the Brown, Gandalf said. Is he a great wizard, or is he like you? Bilbo asked. I think he is a very great wizard, in his own way. He's a gentle soul who prefers the company of animals to others. He keeps a watchful eye over the vast forest lands to the east. And a good thing too, for always evil will look to find a foothold in this world, Gandalf said. Line break eeks ix. Gandalf, Naruto, and the company of dwarves kept moving on as weeks passed on the road. They rode on for weeks as they came to the slopes of some mountains and what looked like an old destroyed house. Thorin saw it as a decent place to make camp. We'll camp here for the night. Filly, Killy, look after the ponies, make sure you stay with them. Oin, Glóin, get a fire going, Thorin said as he walked to the house. Gandalf walked up to the old house and looked around. A farmer and his family used to live here. I think it would be wiser to move on, Gandalf said as Thorin walked up to him. We could make for the hidden valley. I have told you already, I will not go near that place, Thorin said. Why not? The elves could help us. We could get food, rest, advice, Gandalf said. I do not need their advice, Thorin said. We have a map that we cannot read. Lord Elrond could help us, Gandalf said. Help? A dragon attacks Erebor. What help came from the elves? Orcs plunder Moria, desecrate our sacred halls. The elves looked on and did nothing. And you ask me to seek out the very people who betrayed my grandfather. Who betrayed my father, Thorin said. You are neither of them. I did not give you that map and key for you to hold on to the past. Gandalf told him. I did not know they were yours to keep, Thorin said as Gandalf was getting frustrated and walked away. Everything all right? Gandalf, where are you going? Bilbo asked. To seek the company of the only one around here who's got any sense, Gandalf said. And who's that? Bilbo asked. Naruto, Mr. Baggins. Come on, Naruto. I've had enough of dwarves for one day, Gandalf said as Naruto followed and everyone watched them leave. Come on, Bombur, we're hungry, Thorin said, ignoring Gandalf. Are they coming back? Bilbo asked Balin, who didn't seem to have an answer. Line break eeks. Gandalf and Naruto left the group so that Gandalf could get some peace and quiet and clear his head. They also were looking ahead on the possible path to take. After a while, Naruto decided to head back to camp, and on the way he heard some noise and voices that sounded like the dwarves. Naruto stealthily walked through the trees and bushes and saw 3 large trolls near a fire. But then Naruto saw some of the dwarves attached to a rotating spit over the fire, and some of the other dwarves and Bilbo put in sacks. Don't bother cooking them. Let's just sit on them and squash them into jelly, the first troll said as Naruto overheard the conversation. They should be sautéed and grilled with a sprinkle of sage, the second troll said. Oh, that does sound nice, the first troll said. Never mind the seasoning. We ain't got all night. Dawn ain't far away. Let's get a move on. I don't fancy being turned to stone, the third troll said as Naruto got an idea and saw the sun starting to peak in the horizon and saw a large rock and an idea just clicked. Bilbo also heard this and needed to buy some time. Wait, you are making a terrible mistake, Bilbo said. You can't reason with them. They're half-wits, Dory told him. Half-wits? What does that make us? Bofur asked as Bilbo managed to get to his feet despite being trapped in the sack. I mean with the seasoning, Bilbo said. What about the seasoning? The second troll asked. Well, have you smelt them? You're going to need something stronger than sage before you plate this lot up, Bilbo said as the dwarves shouted at Bilbo for selling them out. What do you know about cooking dwarf? The third troll asked. Shut up and let the, Flurgaburba hobbit talk, the second troll said. The secret to cooking dwarf is, Bilbo said as he tried to come up with something. The secret is to skin them first, Bilbo said as the dwarves shouted and tried to get free. Tom, get me filleting knife, the second troll said as the dwarves cursed and shouted at Bilbo. What a load of rubbish. I've eaten plenty with their skins on. Scarf 'em, I say, boots and all, the second troll said as Bilbo looked over to a rock and saw Naruto. Naruto motioned Bilbo to keep talking, and tried to keep them distracted as Naruto kept moving. "He's right. Nothing wrong with a bit of raw dwarf," the first troll said as he went over and picked up Bomber, who was in a sack, and held him over his mouth. "Nice and crunchy." "Oh, not that one. He's infected," Bilbo said. "What?" the second troll asked. "Yeah, he's got worms in his tubes," Bilbo said as the first troll dropped Bomber back with the rest of the dwarves. "In fact, they all have. They're infested with parasites. It's a terrible business. I wouldn't risk it." "I really wouldn't," Bilbo said. "Parasites? Did he say parasites?" "We don't have parasites. You have parasites," the dwarves shouted as Bilbo exhaled in their stupidity. Thorin realized what Bilbo was doing and kicked the others to get them to stop talking. The others then realized Bilbo's plan. "I've got parasites as big as my arm. Mine are the biggest parasites. I've got huge parasites." "We're riddled," the dwarves shouted. "What would you have us do then? Let them all go?" the second troll asked. "Well," Bilbo said as the troll poked him, "do you think I don't know what you're up to? This little ferret is taking us for fools," the troll said. "Ferret?" Bilbo asked. "Fools?" the first troll asked. "The dawn will take you all," Naruto shouted as he stepped onto the large rock as everyone saw him. "Who's that?" "No idea." "Can we eat him too?" the trolls asked as Naruto pulled his fist back and punched the large rock he was sitting on, causing it to split in half and let the sun shine right through and hit the trolls. As soon as the sun hit the trolls, they tried to shield themselves from the sun's rays as their skin turned grey and began to crackle. They tried to move but couldn't as the sun then turned them to stone. Everyone laughed and cheered that they were saved as Gandalf walked into the clearing as well and helped the dwarves out of the sacks, while Naruto snuffed the fire pit and got the other dwarves down from the rotating spit. The dwarves got their weapons and gear as Gandalf walked around and tapped the head of one of the stone trolls as Thorin walked up to him. "Where did you two go, if I may ask?" Thorin asked. "To look ahead," Gandalf said. "What brought you back?" Thorin asked. "Looking behind," Gandalf said as Thorin nodded. "Nasty business. Still, they're all in one piece." "No thanks to your burglar," Thorin said. "He had the noose to play for time. None of the rest of you thought of that," Gandalf said as Thorin nodded, and then they looked at the trolls. They must have come down from the Etten Moors. "Since when did mountain trolls venture this far south?" Thorin asked. "Not for an age. Not since a darker power ruled these lands. They could not have moved in daylight," Gandalf said as Thorin looked around. "There must be a cave nearby," Thorin said. Everyone looked around to see if they could find the cave. Naruto walked around to the bottom, the mountains, and got the whiff of something nasty, and followed the scent, and heard some insects buzzing around, and saw a hole dug into the ground. He found it. The others came as Gandalf led them into the hole, and they were hit with a horrible stench. "Oh, what's that stench?" Nori asked. "It's a troll horde. Be careful what you touch," Gandalf said as he led Thorin, Naruto, Bofur, Gloin, Nori, and Dwalin into the troll horde to find anything useful. Naruto and Thorin held their torches up high as they walked into the troll horde, as Bofur, Nori, and Gloin saw a lot of gold and jewels in the corner with a chest. "Seems a shame just to leave it lying around. Anyone could take it," Bofur said. "Agreed." "Nori, get a shovel," Gloin said. Gandalf looked around as Naruto and Thorin walked over and saw some old swords that had been in the cave for a long time because of the webs and dust the swords had accumulated. Thorin put his torch down and picked up 2 swords and looked at them. "These swords were not made by any troll," Thorin said as he handed the longer one to Gandalf as Gandalf looked it over. "Nor were they made by any smith among men," Gandalf said as he unsheathed the blade and blew some of the dust off and recognized the craftsmanship. "These were forged in Gondolin by the high elves of the First Age," Gandalf said as Thorin was going to put the sword down when he heard elves. "You could not wish for a finer blade," Gandalf said as Thorin unsheathed the blade and had to admit it was excellent, so he decided to keep it. Gandalf kept his as Bofur, Gloin, and Nori were putting some gold in one of the small chests in the troll horde and then were burying it as Dwalin looked at them. "We're making a long-term deposit," Gloin said as Dwalin chuckled. "Let's get out of this foul place. Come on, let's go. Bofur, Gloin, Nori." Thorin said as the dwarves left and Naruto and Gandalf followed, but Naruto stepped on something that wasn't dirt or a rock. Naruto looked down and saw something. He kneeled down and moved some old leaves and rocks and saw it was the handle of an elvish blade. Naruto picked it up and noticed it was very small but still fine to use. He unsheathed it as he showed it to Gandalf, who told him what it was. Gandalf and Naruto walked out of the cave as the others were getting their gear ready. "Bilbo," Naruto called out. Bilbo asked as he walked over, and Naruto held out the small sword. "Here, this should be perfect for your size," Naruto said as Bilbo looked at him and took the sword. "I can't take this," Bilbo said. "But you should. As we keep moving on our journey, you will no longer be able to rely on your wits to get you out of situations," Gandalf told him as he walked over to Bilbo. Gandalf said the blade is of old elvish design, which means it will glow blue when orcs or goblins are nearby, which will be extremely helpful. Naruto told him, "I have never used a sword in my life." Bilbo told them, "And I pray that you never have to. But if you do know this, true courage is about knowing not when to take a life, but when to spare one." Gandalf said, as Naruto smiled, but then stood up as he heard someone or something coming. "Something's coming," Naruto said as they all got their weapons ready, and Naruto pulled out his bow. "Stay together. Hurry now," Gandalf said as Bilbo unsheathed his sword and looked at the blade before joining the others. They heard something coming. It was passing through leaves, breaking branches and scurrying over rocks in a hurry as Naruto readied an arrow as a cart pulled by rabbits came into the clearing with a funny-looking man on the cart as Naruto and the dwarves readied their weapons. "Thieves! Fire! Murder!" the man yelled as Gandalf recognized the man. "Radagast! Radagast the Brown!" Gandalf said as everyone lowered their weapons and Gandalf walked over to Radagast. "What on earth are you doing here?" "I was looking for you, Gandalf." "Something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong," Radagast said. "Yes?" Gandalf asked as Radagast opened his mouth to speak, but lost his train of thought. "Just give me a minute." "Oh, I had the thought and now I've lost it. It was right there on the tip of my tongue," Radagast said as he felt something in his mouth. "Oh, it's not a thought at all. It's a silly old stick insect," Radagast said as he pulled the insect from his mouth as the others looked at him weird. End of chapter 1. Hoped you guys liked the chapter and the beginning of the story. It's similar to the Orange Flash in Westeros, but Naruto's in Middle-earth. Naruto's got his chakra and ninja skills with his new sword and archery training. He's got a special elfish sword which actually exists in the Middle-earth universe, and so does the bow. You can look online to find better images of them. The chapters will follow the Hobbit movie trilogy, with Naruto helping and fighting the forces of Mordor. For those who think that Naruto's a bit underpowered, he's holding back because he has no need to use his full skill when a portion of it will do just fine. Next chapter, the company evade an orc patrol and get a bit of rest before they continue their journey. Disclaimer: I don't own Naruto or The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. Both belong to their respective owners. I'm just a huge fan.